Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today's guest lives in the same space that I do, which means that we're going to have some supercharged real fun. He believes clarity is a choice and that great decision making is a learnable, scalable discipline, not a talent. He spent nearly 8 years at JP Morgan Chase building decision intelligence at scale, and he now directs decision intelligence at IHG Hotels and Resorts and is connected to Decision Compute. So, Gregory, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to the show. Tell us more about you and all the fantastic work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I would say that my career in decision sciences started with my first job. It started in my first 2-week review where I sat down with my leader and she asked me how things were going. And I said, this feels like data entry. And she said, yes, it is. And then she said, what would you do to make it better? And I said, I would automate it so I don't have to do data entry and I can make decisions. So she said, okay. She gave me 1 day a week for 3 weeks. I automated something. And then ever since then, it's been a dead sprint where I'm just trying to figure this stuff out and how to work smarter, not harder.
Okay, so look, you wrote this piece, Screwdrivers, Hand Drills, and Power Tools, and it's been traveling in circles, okay? So you argue that decision intelligence fails when it loses feel. Right now, every vendor on the market is selling more horsepower, faster models, more automation. Can you walk us through a moment when speed was the enemy of the right answer and feel was the thing that saved the decision?
Yeah. So here's a problem that every sales leader knows: matching account names, right? And everyone thinks like, oh, I can just take this account name, I can drop it in the AI. This will quickly match out this list of 2,000 accounts, right? But if you don't ask the AI the right question, or if you're moving too fast, the AI is not going to know about legal entities. It's not going to know about other corporations, and that this list of 2,000, there may be people on there that you can't talk to because your company hasn't agreed to it. So with all of these companies pushing out these amazing technologies, don't get me wrong, like the horsepower is great. I don't have a fancy car, but I can understand that.
So clarity is a choice. I want to pressure test that in the boardroom context. When you're compressing a complex signal into a recommendation for one of your executives, you're deciding what information you're going to leave out. What gets cut in most cases isn't just information, it's usually nuance that people spent their careers earning. How do you decide what the audience can carry, and when does simplification start to actually not tell the truth?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Thank you. I like to use the framework situation-complication-resolution from McKinsey. It's pretty well published. And what this does is this helps break down like what we're talking about into what's important. So if you really sit down and think about what an executive has asked you, they're probably mixing together the situation and the complication. By taking the time to write out and spread out, this is the situation and this is the complication, you immediately begin to figure out what are buffers and nuances that don't need to be brought in. And you can probably get what may be a paragraph explaining what something is back down to 2 or 3 bullet points where 2 of them are the situation and then 2 or 3 of them are the complication. The other really cool part about this framework is the resolution bit, where maybe you don't know what it is, but by putting down something on the page scientifically and sterilely, you're helping guide and navigate that executive to what that conclusion might be.
I think that's one of the more importance about what DI does in these cases is the guiding and navigating part. I think that's where the human piece comes in, because humans actually make the decisions, but being able to guide them down where they ought to go becomes one of the highest value items. So IHG runs like a franchise heavy model, which means that your decisions ripple through thousands of owners, operators, and general managers who happen to have to live with all the consequences long after like a debt closes. So how do you design decision intelligence that works at corporate scale without steamrolling the context of the person running a single property in like Birmingham or Bangkok?
There are some constraints in the system, right? We love all of our owners, So we know that one of the rules, one of the simplifications is we never make a decision that would impact a single owner, right? We're a global business. But when we decide to do something, it's how do we do this for everyone all over the world? So that would be one guiding principle for us. I think in terms of engineering, we're building now a way of how do we capture the feedback from the intelligence that we deploy and what our sellers are saying. So the next time that a situation pops up or one of our franchise owners says, hey, I need some help. Hey, here's what I'm thinking about. We can see that we've already been faced with this decision 100 times before, and here's what
Mhm.
we did, and here are the results, and here's what we should do. So that clarity just immediately accelerates what it is that needs to be done and how we can help that owner.
That's really good. So the learning piece of this becomes incredibly important. So can we talk a little bit about decision compute? So decision compute launches in January or so. And now most decision intelligence kind of work lives inside of enterprises with really big consulting budgets. So the thing that you got now is different from that. What's the gap that you saw and who is being left out of good decision making today?
If you think about how a really big decision is made, it's not made in a meeting, right? It's made through a series of very small, very specific conversations that occur with different people for different reasons at different times. So decision compute was meant to model that behavior where you walk into the boardroom, you ask them a question, the board gives you various different types of advice depending upon what their perspectives are. And then you need to go down and check with your execs and your leadership team to understand what are their opinions, what would they do, how would they react. And then as a leader, we have these big notebooks. You have to then synthesize all of that information and try to figure out what to do and what to do next. So what this tool is targeting, and it has not yet been launched, we're still
Yeah.
doing the research
Okay.
bit of it, and it will be a research tool for us, which we're excited about.
I love it.
What this tool is targeting is the CEO that can't afford or can't hire that billion-dollar consulting firm. How can they have a way where they can have a conversation with a full board, with a full C-suite, with a full leadership minus one team that's all simulated, right? And then
Mhm.
have all the notes pushed back up to them. And there's some features in this where the advisor will jump in a simulated AI conversation and say something like, "Hey, you're not thinking about the 5-year plan. You're only thinking about your 1-year delivery." And that
Mhm.
makes the
Mhm.
AI branch the conversation a different way. So it really is about how do we involve more people in it? And the feature that I'm most excited for this is we're going to allow someone to like you can send an email out and you can invite someone to come in and say, hey, play the role of the CTO in this simulated conversation. And then it all sucks back up.
What a fantastic training tool that will be. I think about emerging leaders also, needing that kind of training. Instead of having to just point them at a book, like Crucial Conversations, for example, you could point them at this tool in addition to the book. We like books. So, but you could point them at a tool like this as well to really help them to practice and
Yeah.
understand. Really great.
The, the mission is we want to define repeatable decisions and reserve ambiguity for human judgment where it can really make a
Yes.
difference.
That's really good. Really good. Okay, so you've written a lot about like high trust executive presentations and disciplined storytelling. There's a version of this conversation where the presentation is the decision. So the facts are known, the analysis is done, and the choice gets made on how it's framed. Is that a feature of human organizations or a bug that we should be engineering out?
I think about my friend, you talking about books. I think about our friend Daniel Kahneman and like thinking fast and thinking slow.
Mhm.
And I think when the decision is pre-done, like there are sales leaders that they just know, like it's their instinct, then they know that it's right. So sometimes going with, when the data says something and the anecdote says something else, going with the anecdotes is the right thing to do. So I think this is an opportunity where when these things occur, document it, do it the way that you normally would, make sure it's captured in your decision log, and then look back and evaluate it. And if you can track that a sales leader says, hey, this is what's going to happen and this is the decision we need to make, and they have accuracy over time and you have data to support it,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't necessarily call it a bug to be wired out, but certainly a bug to always be watching on your heat map.
Okay, so here's another little area for you. You say LLMs help you think, Python helps you act. You said
Yeah.
that, right? That was you.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So honestly, it was like the cleanest formulation of that split. that I've seen. So,
Thank you.
can you walk us through your actual workflow? So, when does a problem earn a Python solution, and when does it stay in the LLM as an I that you're shaping?
So I think that you want to get into sort of deterministic rules and then reasoning rules. So when I think about the LLM, I think about I'm interacting with the smartest entity that I will ever experience with, other than like an alien or true artificial intelligence existing. Just it will always know more and think more than me. So the better that I can get at asking the question, the better result that I can get out of it. So with this concept of leveraging Python, I can ask the LLM to help me reason through a very complicated thought process of and I think this one wasn't specific to options evaluations. And they can think about implied volatility and gammas and the Greeks and all things that I may not necessarily know. But the LLM can then take my natural language question and then write out for me. And I've got a floppy disk here some, and then
Come on, floppy disk.
write out, there you go, right there. Write out for me a Python code, which I can think of as a floppy disk that I can then lift and give to someone that doesn't know anything about Python, LLMs, or options, have them plug it into their computer, and then they answer the questions that comes out and they have access to that knowledge. So I really think about it as knowledge as a product. Let me know if that answered your question. I'm happy to go back if I
Yeah,
didn't.
there's this area that leaders tend to trip, right? They decide that they're going to implement AI, they're going to buy the tooling, and then 9 months later, the workflow looks the exact same but with more dashboards. So, from your vantage point at a big global organization, what is the decision that most organizations are getting wrong at the moment that they commit to this? And what would be a better first move? What would that look like?
So we have a totally different tool to use than we did 5 years ago, even a year ago, if you think about the arc on it. So I think it's really about thinking about changing the ways you work to adopt the new tools,
Mhm.
which is what slows people down and sort of picking this stuff up. I know when I first started working with the AI, it was my inclination to, okay, I got a data set, I'll pivot it, I'll bring in some fields, I'll look at it, take me 20 minutes, I got it, right? Guess what? I can write down that thought process as a prompt to the AI, give it any data set that I want, and it can do the same thing for me in 2 seconds.
Mm,
And the only
mhm.
thing that held me back was me choosing to stay in my legacy way of working, which is what I felt really comfortable with. So as these companies adopt these things, it's a brand new tool, it's a brand new technique, it's a brand new way of working. And I think the biggest thing that's going to hold people back is being open-minded to doing something different.
I I can tell you for a fact that that's the problem. You can build the most amazing tool, but I will tell you the one thing that I'm learning right now as we implement decision intelligence tools at scale is that it's not that the problem isn't the problem, but the other problem is human, and it's how we think and how we feel in the things we're doing. If I'm used to looking at dashboards, I don't care if you put 50 things automated in front of me that produce the information. It's going to be a long journey to getting to the point where I'm actually looking for something else. So the transformation around customer success and onboarding and adoption of these tools to me becomes some of the most important parts because it can be fast, it can be sexy, it can be all the things, and it will not matter if someone is in their workflow and they can't see what they're accustomed to seeing. You gave them something that looks like what they had before. Well, sometimes you have to start there. You have to start with something that looks almost exactly like what they had. The workflow behind it is different, but and then over time I can transition and change this. So I'm glad you made that point because I've been noodling on this one for a while. Like, dang it, people, these things are fancy, but then it just takes so long to get adoption, and this is why.
And the other bit too is we're servicing opportunities to our sales team in a brand new way. And there's a human component to this because, they're sellers, they have a job to do, and they're going to go to the well that they know that can produce, not the well that maybe necessarily looks the best to them. So it's not only the technology and the people who are doing the work and building it, but it's
Yeah.
also creating that belief that, hey,
Right.
the research is here. And for us at IHG, because we have a great culture of feedback, when we give them intelligence and they don't like it, we give them the right to say why.
Right.
The data was wrong. The data was not timely. The data was whatever it might be. And that
Yeah.
feedback is a gift. because it helps us next time make sure that we're serving the next best opportunity up.
I love that. So here's another little area. So sensitivity plus speed builds durable advantage. That's you. That's your thesis. Okay. So in hospitality specifically, you're kind of living through Airbnb's maturation, for example, remote work permanently reshaping business travel, AI rewriting the booking journey from search to check in. Which of those structural shifts scare you the most? And how does your framework really force a different response than the reactive one?
What I would say is like the hotel industry has been around for a long time and we've seen a lot of technological changes. So when I think about all of this stuff, I just get very excited. And I think about the third century of modern hoteliers and what might be offered. I think for the booking process, I'm just very excited about guests that know about our brands. For example, we have a program called Business Edge for our small, medium size. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited about a future where their AI model context protocol knows that they have a program with IHG. And then when they're doing their booking, the AI is optimizing for the traveler in terms of where they go and optimizing for their preferences. So they go to Memphis and they stay in one of our beautiful hotels there, or they go to a city where we don't have the same property. And then the
Mm-hmm.
AI serves up the right experience for them. So
Very
I'm
cool.
thrilled. I'm thrilled by that. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the reactionary stuff, I think it's important to always be aware of it. But I think a lot of these things, like we're seeing Accor, which is a group, they've announced that they have a GPT in the market.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
Marriott and OpenAI also announced that. Like I said, the hotel business has been here for a long time, and it's going
Sure.
to be very exciting to observe the other players adopt the technology. We're doing some stuff here at IHD as well,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the other players adopt the technology and like what happens. And like
Yeah.
in the end, I'm a scientist and an
That's
economist,
right.
so these are all experiments to me. So I'm sure
It's kind
different
of
people
fun.
might answer. Yeah, people might answer these questions differently, but it's
No,
good stuff.
I think it's great because it actually proves why you're there, right? So because the world is changing, things are different, right? Technology is moving and changing how people work, live, all of these things. Well, that's great because in your case, then from a decision landscape, have the opportunity to bring forth here are the different outcomes that could potentially be there
Yep.
based on taking any of these particular actions that we might do. So it just creates a scenario where you have lots of decision stuff that you can add. So I get it.
And these tools that we have, like the work that we can do is so much faster. Like I've written more code in the last 12 months than I have in the first 12 years of my career. And the code that I've written is better than anything that I could have written without being augmented by some of these tools. Like it is so awesome.
It sure is, right? Fast, better, add your rubrics up front to make sure that you're writing good code. I really appreciate it. All right, let's jump into my favorite part of every episode, which is so I'm going to read four statements. Each one of them represents a different decision making persona. Okay. After each one of them, you're going to tell me on a scale from 0 to 100% how much it actually reflects your decision making. Now, you only get 100% across all four. So you have to keep that in mind as you're picking your percentage. Okay?
Understood.
Ready to go. So the first one is called a feeler. It's a values driven leader. Here's the statement. A decision intelligence system that ignores the human layer isn't intelligent, it's fast. Every recommendation I produce eventually lands on a front desk, a housekeeper, a franchise whose family depends on that P&L, or a guest at the end of a hard travel day. If the model optimizes the enterprise number but erodes trust in the system that produced it, I've traded long term capability for a short term win. Feel isn't soft. It's the signal that tells me the decision will survive contact with reality. How much of that is you?
If we think about the hotel business, our job is to welcome guests into our 7,000 hotels with more than 1 million rooms. And our business is the only one where our customers experience it through all five senses. So I would want to have conviction that whatever opportunity that's generated from the system, where there's an ask or something's being done, guarantees that our customer coming in has a great experience and that we can service them the right way. And that's a big value thing and a big thing about what IHJ is and why we're successful. So I would say for this, it's probably like a third. Like we wouldn't want to make a recommendation that impacts, but there are realities in our business where we have to make a decision on behalf of the entire estate. So I would say we think very heavily about it. We want to make sure the decisions that we make reflect that.
Okay. Did I get the percentage? What did you tell me?
Sorry, one third.
Okay. Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
All right. So this one is called the planner. It's a strategic visionary. I'm obsessed with architecture, not outcomes. Any one decision I get right or wrong matters less than whether the next 100 decisions are easier, faster, and more transparent because of the structures I built this year. When I'm designing a framework at IHG, I'm thinking about an AI landscape that will look nothing like today in 5 years. And I'm asking whether what I'm building creates optionality for the team that inherits it or quietly locks them out into my current assumptions.
I would say this is probably 25% of how I think. And the way I would rationalize this is we're building something that's so new and we're iterating so fast that we want to be conscious that we are not solutioning architecture for something that we cannot discover. I talk a lot about with the team about the hurricane tracker and the cone of uncertainty and how each wave we're just basically placing bets on where we should place resources and make investments and see what can happen. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that we don't want to lock ourselves into a future state that we wouldn't be able to support through practical incremental results. So yeah, I think 25% of the time I'm thinking about that.
All right, let's keep it going. Here's the next one. It's called the counter. It's the challenger of assumptions. So the industry quietly accepted that more data plus faster compute equals better decisions. I think that equation is wrong and has been for a while. Most organizations aren't suffering from a data deficit, they're suffering from a clarity deficit. And more analytical firepower is often the thing obscuring the answer. My contrarian move is subtraction. A simple framework that a VP actually trusts will beat a brilliant model that no one uses every time. Is that you?
I mean, I would say 100%, especially the challenge, especially the challenger part of it. But yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what's your percentage? You don't get to say 100% because you've
Yeah,
only got,
30.
yes, that's what you got left. So,
I'll go with 25%. But I think in the decision intelligence space, being willing to always ask why. That should be anytime someone asks a question like why, like that necessarily is not being disruptive. I would call it documenting. But
yeah.
yeah, I think there's that natural curiosity there.
I think you're absolutely right. Why is the foundational basis of DI? Why is that? Here's your last one. You're going to love it. It's called the data driver. It's an evidence based operator. So I anchor in evidence and I don't apologize for it. LLMs help me think, but Python is where I actually test whether an idea survives. I want production ready analysis, reproducible code, and a disciplined story that a skeptical executive can interrogate and still leave convinced. At the same time, I'll be the first one to tell you that relationship quality and executive trust often decide whether the evidence ever gets acted on. The data earns the meeting, the trust earns the decision.
Yeah. So I think I only have 12% left.
That's right.
But this one, when I started my career, I was responsible for a weekly business review. Where on the second week I had changed something. I think I changed I bolded a word or put an underline somewhere. And I got called into the office and the leader said to me, do not change anything in this document other than the numbers. And I asked why. And he said, the reason why is for better or for worse, this is the view that we will look at every single week to observe the business. And since everyone knows how these numbers populate this view, the only thing that can be changing it is something in the systems and the numbers. And he said that pattern recognition of the report helps build trust in it. And then 6 months from now, when something pops on it, all of the other execs in the room or whatever it's going to be have confidence in the report because they've seen the same thing every week for 12, 14, 16 weeks. And they have faith that something actually has changed. So I think that
100%.
the data stuff is awesome.
Yeah, you know what's very fascinating about what you're saying is I think people are not recognizing this is a part of the adoption the problem with generative AI and why people don't have trust. So reports serve a purpose, right? If I get a report and it looks the same, it's just I don't need to repeat what you just said. But this is why the adoption curve on generative AI type tools is down for the hardcore, very important things. Because if every time I look at the report, it's different if I run an analysis and every time it gives me a different response, people who know stuff are going to be like, I don't know about that. It's getting harder and harder to believe. So I think that we're going to find that over time, that's a part of why you got to have a lot of other systems around
So
artificial intelligence.
yeah, I'm like maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but I have a weekly like economic indicator report that I have my AI run for me, and I have it exact same format. And I sit there with my pencil. I print it out. It's a one page. I print it out every Saturday, and
Yeah.
I go through and I observe what the AI changed. And I have a couple different models that I work at to see how the reasoning is moving backwards and forwards and what's changing report over report. So we're
That's
learning.
it's so critical. Call that your quality review system.
Yeah.
So I think people don't know they need to have one of those for their AI output to ensure that it's actually not hallucinating after it decides on a new predicted value for something. So really cool. So Gregory, this has been super awesome. Thank you so much for spending this time going through this. I have one other question for you. For a leader who might be listening and that's drowning in signals right now. They have more dashboards than insight right now. They have more tools than time right now. What is the one move that you would tell them to make this week to regain clarity?
What are the three most important things that you have to deliver for your leader and some defined time period? And then pick only the signals that will help you make progress on those work items.
That's good. It's called focus, good people. It's called focus. Good stuff. So can you tell our listeners where they can follow you, learn more about you? I know that you have stuff on Medium where they can learn about the mission of Decision Compute.
Yeah, thank you. So I have my LinkedIn profile, so maybe we can drop that in the bottom in the chat. I'm still learning all the content stuff, using the AI to build the whole machine. So as this stuff gets built up, I appreciate it. But for now, like just find me on LinkedIn and you can follow me there. That's where I post most regularly.
Sounds good. And to our listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you're ready to trade raw speed for durable advantage, subscribe and share this episode. Keep the conversation going using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.